G'day guys, welcome back to Beers and Break-Evens. Today we're going to go through the 2RFs and the front row forwards, so the last episode of our positional analysis before Timmy trials are here next week. How fucking good.
Jesus Christ, mate. How exciting is that? Just to actually have some... And I'm even more excited than prior years because there's a little bit more incentive around them. I feel like they'll be a little bit more official than previous years, so... Oh, it's in the air.
Mrs. said to me yesterday, she goes, we'll go out on Saturday night before the footy season starts. I said, Dolphins are playing the Capras in a trial. And it's Tafare's first game, so no. No, we will not be going out for dinner. So apologies. I've got to watch that game on my laptop.
Darling,
it's not on
I would
TV
love to, but work is calling.
there are a number of reserve graders I need to watch.
I need to put food on the table for Guru Jr.
There is a Tafare, a Katoa playing. This is my Super Bowl, unfortunately, so I'll see you next year. Guys, Beers and Break-Evens once again this year brought to you by Blue Wealth Property. They make investing in property easy for you. Tony's going to be joining us over the next few weeks, and he has got a mammoth announcement coming your way. The prize and everything we've got for you guys this year is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be sensational, so cannot wait for that. Bloke in a Bar, Kemby last night at 6 p.m. launched his 50-hour sale, 50% off for 50 hours, so you've still got, with a little bit of quick maths, I'm going to say about 30 hours left, Timmy.
Yeah, good quick math, mate. And some poor bugger out there is going to be listening to this after the cut-off, and they're going to hear it and just go, oh, why didn't I listen to this podcast earlier?
Unlucky. Yeah. So make sure you get on there. Bloke in a Bar, Kempy's giving you some unreal discounts with some unreal gear as well. So you've got a few more hours left to get stuck into that. Mate, I guess before we do start as well, the SuperCoach playbook has been flying on YouTube.
It has, mate. Yeah, with a bit of guidance from old Grino over there, it's going good. So what we're doing this year is obviously the SC Playbook podcast in studio for the first time, which is really exciting, getting some great people on that. We'll be rotating between the regulars throughout the season. So that'll be going up there. The Beers and Break-Evens, just doing clips from this podcast and throwing up on the channels, a bit shorter and sharper. And then, of course, from the Bloke in a Bar podcast as well, just the same thing, just clipping up a few short stuff and putting on there. So to go with the SC Playbook podcast, bits and pieces elsewhere. So do us a favour and subscribe to the channel. Yeah,
make sure you subscribe to SuperCoach Playbook, and if you're here at Rugby League Guru, subscribe here as well. So doing us favours all round. Now, mate, went through the CTWs yesterday. I'm still tired.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
A lot of cheapies to put red lines through and ward people off from. Alternatively, they all come out and average 100 the first few rounds, and we're out of a job. So waiting for that to happen, but there was a lot.
Waiting for that to happen, regardless. But yes, I'm sure that could be another catalyst.
Enjoy it while it lasts, mate.
Mate, today we got 2RFs front row forward. We are going to go through the 2RFs first. I think they're a little bit more prominent, a little bit more important, a lot more interesting. Front row forward's a bit of a fucking basket case, but we'll get to that soon. But 2RFs, mate. A few cheapies floating around here. We're not quite sure how it's all going to land, with the Melbourne Storm back row and Parramatta's back row. So a lot of question marks. I think that probably these two positions, potentially more so than any other trials, are going to be super important.
That's it, mate. Just finding out the roles of people, and we'll touch obviously on front row forward after, but just minutes of front rowers is so important. And the other thing with front rowers around their minutes, what the round one benches look like, what the rotations are going to look like. Is there a utility on there? Aside to the name of 4 forward bench for round one, almost puts a line through certain players as well. So big watch there. And second row forward, it's a fun position. It's great because there's so much upside to certain players. There's a lot of top dollar players that you're like, surely they've got to regress in price after big years, but we've seen time and time again that doesn't always happen, so I can't wait to get stuck into this.
And I think with 2RF, mate, there's a couple of guys that I think are must-have guys automatic that are reflected in the ownership percentage, but then there's, underneath that, there's a lot of punts that you can take here, and I don't think there's any obvious standout. So there's a lot to dive into here. I guess, mate, we'll start with the guns here for 2RFs. Now, how many guns do you think you'll be starting with? 1, 2, forward 3, or do you think that 1 or 2 is sort of the magic spot?
As it stands, I've got 1. if Luke Garner doesn't get sort of the big role that we anticipate, like let's say, I think Garner will. We've always spoken a bit about him. If he were to get named on the bench round 1 and say Hosking or Sorensen, I don't think it'll happen. But if they were to get that role, that would be a bit of a spanner in the works because then you're sort of starting to look a little bit slim there. I currently have one gun locked in. There's a few that I really like, but I'm spending up around my spine at this stage, not in my back row. But there's a really good case that, you know, while it might not be the high ceiling position of halves and fullback and that sort of thing, you know, you can get some consistent big scores as well. It's a tough one. But at the moment, one gun in my back row.
And when we are talking about, you know, some of them do have a bit of upside. One of them definitely has. Fafita. Is he the one that you've got in your team?
He's the one that I've got plugged in at the moment.
Yeah.
And even there, you say gun, it's like, oh, who bloody knows what he's going to come out with. So
yeah, but mate, in saying that, frustrating as all fuck last year. 66 average, the same as Angus Crichton. So, pretty wild. Now, Fafita, 689k, which is a lot of coin, but for him, I'm not sure if it is a lot of coin. If you get him at, I don't even if you don't get him at his best, if you get him at 70%, there's a bit of value there. Obviously, the side has changed a lot of changes. I was hoping he would get Foles. He's got Tanner Boyd, which I don't hate. He's got a history with him. I think that my next dot point just summarises Fafita. Can't do worse.
Yeah, exactly. I think worst case scenario is a 55 average, in which case he loses a little bit of money. It's like, and you know, you can cop that. But
I think a lot would have to go wrong for him to drop to 55, though.
Yeah, so 65 average priced on 85 the year before. We've touched on a few times, of course, in our teams and whatnot. Contract year for David Fafita. I love that for him because he's going to come out and play. Like, I remember before he signed his last contract, there was talks of what is this bloke worth? Like, how much do you pay for Dave Fafita? Because he could be one of the rare forwards that you pay $1 million plus for. That was the chat at the time. Yeah. And you see now in the last 2 years, you know, not a chance you'd pay that. If he comes out the first 10 rounds and demolishes opposition, the same conversations will be had, you know it. And he knows that. He's not stupid. Yeah. So I just think he's going to come out so fired up, looking to make a statement, as anyone would in a contract year. So, yeah.
And not only is it a big year for him, but Tanner Boyd's been given an opportunity here. I just can't imagine Tanner Boyd sitting back and letting Fafita float around and not fucking, like, he's got to get him into gear. Yeah. He's got to use, he's just, all Tanner Boyd has to do is show that he can use Fafita, utilise him, which I know sounds easy. It's easier said than done based off what we've seen in the last few years. But I think Fafita,
get the best out of Dave Fafita, and you can stay in this team for as long as you want. Don't care if you kick shit, tackle shit. Just get the best out of Dave.
Just get the best out of him. Yeah. So I like Fafita. I'll be starting with him. I think I'm just too scared to start without him.
That's it, mate. We rabble on about upside players. He's got the best upside of any back rower and forward by a big margin.
Yeah, a distance. Yeah. Angus Crichton, 66 average, the same. He's a touch more expensive. He's about 8K more expensive than Fafita. He's got the buy in round 4. We spoke about it with CTWs. He's obviously got Suoliti on his edge there. Are we assuming that edge sees more ball?
I think so. And I touched in yesterday's podcast on Daniel Tupou and the benefit he had with Luke Keary moving to the left edge. Well, Angus Crichton is far more significant. So, as you said, 66 average last season. He averaged 85 points per game when Keary made that move to the left edge, which is substantial.
85?
Yeah. So, he's a guy that I don't think I'll be starting with him primarily for the reason that, as you said, they've got that buy, and it's a great thing about the buys this year is that you can't stack too much from one team.
Yeah.
So at this stage, I'll be starting with James Tedesco, Brandon Smith, possibly Daniel Tupou. If I was throwing Angus Crichton in there as well, it's a lot of money on the pine for round 4. So Angus Crichton scored. He didn't score a try last season in the first 18 rounds. Luke Keary came back around 19 and he scored 5 tries in the run home and averaged 88 or something. So, It's a big case.
Oh, mate, it's a huge case, 100%. Without going over what we said the other day, I'm worried that there might be too many mouths on that left edge. But I just think Angus, he is such a tremendous player. There is always going to be opportunities there for him somewhere.
He's the one that I see, because he runs just that outstanding line. I'm talking myself into him as we go. Yes, too many mouths to feed, but similar to what Andrew Davey and like a left edge or any edge back rower, to be honest, at Manly would do when Tommy Turbo's firing.
Yep.
Because he takes up so much attention out the back and people are worried about that, they just slide off the hard lead running back row just that little bit, and it opens up opportunities for him just to glide through holes. So when you've got James Tedesco going out the back, Suoliti, Tupou on the outside, maybe Joe Maru roaming around there, Luke Keary feeding it all, who invariably gets the right option every time, short ball Crichton over. So I don't know if I think the too many mouths to feed could work in his favour because of the potency. So 66 average. The 2 years prior, he averaged 75 and 76, 2021, that anomaly year, the high scoring, but...
Yeah, I think I'm willing to say Angus Crichton will be a 70-plus player at minimum next year.
Yeah, so to start with him, I'd probably have to cull another rooster from my team, and thinking out loud here, obviously, but it'd probably mean starting without Daniel Tupou, which I'm okay with. He's not locked into my team at this stage, but I said you can't have too many. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it'll be an interesting guy. Angus obviously got the bye round 4. Origin will then roll around, so plenty to consider, but such a good player. Cam Murray. You had coffee with him yesterday morning. You've mentioned it about 14 fucking times from memory.
It's going to happen. That wasn't even the Back Rows podcast.
Cam Murray, 749k, so a little bit more expensive than these guys with a 71 average from last year. It should be noted he obviously had that game. I think it was the last round of the season where he got knocked out. He scored 1.
1, yep.
You take that out, you're looking at a 74-point high something average. So 75 average, essentially, Cam Murray. I don't think I'll start with Murray, but and I think I can probably tattoo this on every SuperCoach player out there. At some point, I will have Cam Murray.
Oh, and I hope that point is very early on in the season, because last season I had him in my side all pre-season, and then he sat out the trials and was apparently, a little bit limited training because I think it was a hamstring niggle going into round 1, and I just thought, too much risk for that price. So I avoided him. He started the year with a very tough run against Brisbane, who ended up being good at that point. Storm, Roosters and Panthers. He went 54, 76, 129 and 76. Mate, he's so good.
He's owned by 20%. That's a little bit higher than what I probably expected at that price.
It's a big price tag to pay, mate, and that's the thing. So the Bunnies have got that hard draw to start the year, but that's Cam Murray. It doesn't really impact him. To be honest, it probably just means that they'll be involved in tighter games. There will be no blowout scorelines, and he plays bigger minutes. So, look, I love the bloke, but at that price, I'm happy to hopefully wait that he comes down a little bit.
It is interesting to see Cam Murray at 749k, 20% ownership. Angus Crichton, who's 50k cheaper at 10%.
Yeah, it is.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And you've got Fafita that's even lower than that as well. I can't see him at the moment, but yeah, very, very interesting. Okay, this one. 831k, a lot of bicky to pay for a West Tigers back rower, Isaiah Papali'i. 2021, he was incredible. We said he can't possibly do it again in 2022. I'd argue he got better. Going to the Tigers, though, it's a 79 average. He's scored 14 tries. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Isaiah Papali'i going to the Tigers. I just think, Timmy, that even if we're wrong, I don't think it's going to cost you not having him. So I'm happy to sit and wait.
Yeah, where it costs you is, I suppose, if he holds his price or thereabouts, and he's punching out 80s early on and 90s early on, it can hurt you a little bit. And I hadn't even looked twice. I hadn't double-checked on Isaiah Papali'i when I was going through my back row options because of the price and going to a new club, the fact that he scored so many tries the last 2 seasons. On the podcast, SC Playbook podcast during the week, Desi Creek brought him up and said, I'm genuinely tempted to start with him because, as you said, Guru, we said the same thing last year. Yep. Couldn't possibly do it again. Not a chance. Who were we all scrambling for after 4 or 5 rounds? it's different this year in that he's not available at front row. So he's going up against some elite back rowers. He may well be the best of them, but he's still starting. As you said, he might hurt a little bit, but I don't think he can go up in value from a 79 average.
That's what I mean when I say I don't think he can hurt.
Yeah.
Like, you're still going to have to pay that amount of money at some point.
Yeah.
I think you can generate cash elsewhere and then move to him eventually. I don't think he's going to get higher than $850K.
Exactly right. And, he had a terrific combination with Mitchy Moses on the right edge at Para. One of the hardest combinations, because it's all about timing to get right, is that hard line running back rower off their new halfback just to get in sync with each other. It'll take time. We believe he'll be right side running off Adam Dewey.
No, he's going to be left.
He'll be left off Luke. Okay, so I prefer him off Brooks, so I don't mind that. But again, it'll take time, so no, I can't fork that out.
Still not in a top 14 like he was last year. And I always, and once again, I understand, we said this in 2020, at the start of 2022,
Yeah.
I worry guys coming off career years. I really worry guys coming off career years out of nowhere, getting the big contract, going to a lesser club. Just a lot. I hope I'm wrong. Just a lot of red flags there at that price when you can get your Angus for, what is it, 150K less?
Yeah. I know where I'm going.
Big whack.
With a better draw.
And I also reckon that as more and more people start to work out, not as many CTW cheapies, I don't know if you're going to be able to play 830K for a punt in the 2RF.
Exactly. That say you wanted to go Crichton, the 150 odd plus K that you can save on that you can distribute across your CT dub, that could be pretty handy.
Yeah, for sure. Mate, Hudson Young. Might be a little pod play here. One of your boys down there in the Canberra Raiders. We're both huge fans of him. 704K. Another guy potentially coming off a career year. Base stats, 41 per year. Last year, though, 14 tries. Love him. Tough to match, though, I think.
Great pod, because he does have the upside, and he's just so goddamn good. But that is a lot of tries for a back rower.
Yeah.
Again, where there's so many great options in the back row that you speak about career years, how good he was. Well, can he replicate it? I think he can. Can he average more than he did? Will he replicate the amount of tries? Probably not. The problem is, of course, you mentioned his base. He needs the attacking stats. He really does. So he'll have his 100-plus scores, but he'll also have his 40s and his 50s.
Yeah.
So if I'm paying 700K for someone, I want that locked in 60-odd every week with the upside of 100-plus. So I can't do it, but, there's merit in going, well, if he does come out and replicate it and then some, he could be an improver.
Credit to Hudson Young. He finished the season with a 67-point average. As I said, he scored 14 tries. He scored almost half of them. So he scored 6 of those 14 tries in the last 4 weeks. The entire season before that, he still averaged 62. So not bad.
Yeah.
But you still are going to lose a bit of value there and whatnot. I think at some point, we'll be looking at Hudson Young.
Yeah.
I think there will be a period of time. He'll be a Sivitalikai sort of guy that if you can time it properly, it could be unreal.
Yeah, there'll be blocks of tries.
Yes.
And scores. So it's just all timing.
Colin Muntungi at the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I kind of feel a little bit similar with him as I do with Hudson Young, coming off a bit
Very
of a career
similar.
year. Yeah. There's only $3,000 difference between them. I hear people say that he's got Ilias now, he's more experienced. I don't see much changing for Colin Muntungi.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing is, scored 7 tries last year. I thought that would have been more. So again, it's a big price tag.
7 tries for back row is still a good knock, though.
Absolutely, it is.
I think we get carried away with your Hudsons,
Yeah.
your Lanes for feet. Like,
Doesn't
7's a
happen.
good knock.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I don't know. I can't see myself paying out for Keon at that price. Another one who'll absolutely be an option down the track, but I don't know. His base is 47, which is pretty solid, but it just doesn't excite me at this stage.
A guy that was very, very hot in 2022, his partnership with Dill Brown was unbelievable. 724K, not much changes for him. Sean Lane, 69 average last season. Can the Giraffe do it again?
I think that he possibly can. He was outstanding last year. Like, there were times where he was just toying with them. They didn't know what to do with the big boy. And so in he started off the season playing close to 80 minutes, but there were a few games lesser, and once he really found his feet by early to mid-season, he averaged 78 across the final 14 games of the year. And Para have a tough draw early on. He's pretty matchup proof. Like, he was scoring big against the harder opposition. So I think draw's pretty irrelevant to him. Again, he's top dollar, but could he be a bloke who's starting under value? Yeah, maybe. I won't start with him, but I can see the appeal in it because big upside, big ceiling. He's so locked into an 80-minute role for them there, especially Maddo's out early. They lose Isaiah Papali'i, so early showers with a tough draw as well. I think his minutes are safe.
I think that we spoke about it a few weeks ago that obviously by planning everything has changed this year. I think that smart Supercoach players will be lining up a Dill Brown, Sean Lane combination during the Origin period.
Playing all three of the big buy rounds.
Yep, that'll be a big target.
So that's the thing. And I suppose I'm set on probably David Fifita in my back row and then possibly Angus Crichton. I'm just like, well, I don't think fit a third gun in there, but a lot of people may be thinking similar to I, which might make Lane a less than 10% pod.
Yep, for sure. Now, one guy that I am looking at, I don't mind him as a little pod, Olakuatu from the Manly Seagulls. 682k. Finished last year with a 65 average. Reasons why I like him, you have a look after Jerseygate last year, the remaining 7 games, he averaged 54. Leading into that, he averaged 68. And I just think with Foreign gone, I think that Ches is a pretty ball-dominant guy, and I believe he'll become more ball-dominant. And we know how much he loves to use this guy. Depending on how, I probably won't start with him, but he's a guy that I'm going to be keeping a very, very close eye on. I'm a big fan of Olakuatu.
Yeah, I was a little bit burnt by that last sort of 5, 6 rounds last year after Jerseygate. What do you have, 10 or so tries last year. But he's so good that I'm like, well, I can see him replicating that tries. He also scored a lot of tries just diving on kicks last season. So while the try stats are there, a lot of them weren't bolstered by the line rate to go with it, which is quite significant. Another one there, I mentioned the back rollers at Manly, the benefit of Tommy Trebojevic being there, how good it is to be running a line with Tommy sweeping out the back.
Yeah.
It's just a good spot to be.
100%.
So, look, I just don't know what to make of Manly at this stage. I just want to see them play. I want to see Tommy get through a few games. But, yeah, mate, he's a Supercoach gift.
Yeah.
Bust tackles, offloads, attacking upside, base of 42. It's okay, but I'm probably more confident on him than most back rowers in Supercoach that they will get attacking stats each game. So, yeah, smoky.
Speaking of attacking stats, should we get into, in my opinion, the biggest trap heading into season 2023?
Jeremy, my nano, let's go.
Thank you. Let's do it. 17 tries for an average of 62.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
How? It's impressive.
Yeah.
I challenge anyone out there to find me someone that has scored more than 15 tries in a season and has averaged below 62.
Base of 38.
Outrageous.
For an 80-minute back rower, that's nothing, is it?
No, it's awful. And I mean, on top of that, I think I read on the weekly rubdown, of those 17 tries, 9 of them were off kicks.
Yeah.
17. That's it. Mate, I'm getting teams sent to me with Nanai in it.
Well, have you got an ownership there for him?
I'll find it for you. Keep talking.
Just because I'm the same, mate.
10%.
Yeah, I don't like it.
He's the same as Angus.
I suppose the only...
For the same price.
I suppose the idea is really soft draw to open up. That was his breakout year. Clearly a star in the making if he's not there already. Does he just continue? Is he one of them blokes where you look at the negatives, but he's like Latrell where it doesn't matter if he has a tough draw, it doesn't matter if he's missing this bloke, he's just a gun and he'll find his attack. I don't think so, but I don't know. He's not for me, mate.
Yeah, I'm very, very surprised. In saying that, the Cowboys do have this very good draw.
It's a good draw.
It's a very flat track. It might be perfect for Nanai, but
yeah,
when you have a look around the room at the other options that you can get around the same price, for 100k cheap, you can get Adam Elliott.
Yeah.
I think a Nanai bringing that on into your team is madness. Now, another guy that could be interesting this year, he's obviously a tremendous footballer, Paddy Carrigan. 654k, 62 average last year. Marty Tapau's joined the club a few days ago. I don't think Marty's got huge minutes in him anymore, but there is a rumour going around that we could see Flegler wind up at the Manly Seagulls to start this season. Now, that's going to, if that was to play out, there's going to be huge implications, not only on 2RF, but on front row forward as well. He becomes very enticing all of a sudden, Flegler, if he ends up down there. But I think it also really does help Pat Carrigan up at the Brisbane Broncos. Shout out to the Weekly Rubdown, sent me this stat. Last year, when he played between 60 to 70 minutes, he averaged 73. Those numbers are pretty fucking incredible.
How many games did he do that? What was he doing playing 70 minutes?
Don't know. But when he did, played that many minutes. So whether he does or not, I probably doubt it. But geez, if he can start to push into that high 65 sort of mark, be very interesting.
Mate, I love the Rubdown boys, but he didn't play more than 58 minutes in a game last season.
Are they talking shit?
I reckon they've got you. I reckon they've got you and they've backed you not to double check it. Had a top of 58 minutes.
No, it was in their notes. Interesting. All right. Nadia Mooka. Timmy's called you out.
Yeah, I've got you. In saying that, I'm probably looking at like 2017 stats or something. And no. So, I don't know.
To be honest with you, I don't mind him anyway. I think he's a tremendous footballer. And if they are a front row short there, he is looking... Yeah, you are looking like... I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So, Pat Carrigan last year... when he played 69 minutes.
I thought you were talking about Tom Flegler.
No, Carrigan. That was a fun 4 minutes.
What? Mate, you're like chopping and changing willy-nilly like that.
Jesus Christ. Try and keep up, would you, kid? For fuck's sake. Pat Carrigan. Games that he plays over 60 minutes. Have you got anything you want to say to the great Nadia Mooka, by the way?
No.
Any apologies to hand out?
You're a shit host, mate. You apologise.
Please.
I was like, Tom Flegler, 70 minutes. Yes, please.
Sure. Pat Carrigan, when he plays 60 to 80 minutes or 60 to 70 minutes, 73 average. Pretty fucking handy there if he is able to get those big minutes. Didn't score a single try last year either, so it is all base with a little bit of upside. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, 53 base. I wish he was at front row. I would just nearly pick and stick for the season just about if he was front row. I'm so...
Flegler is front row, isn't he?
I'm done.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see how that domino falls. But yeah, if he had the duel, different conversation.
I'm all about chasing upside in SuperCoach. Like Pat Carrigan, 5 to 10 years ago, when SuperCoach was so base stat dominant in your scoring, he would be like the gift from the gods. And that doesn't mean he's not a good buy this year. I don't see any upside in him. Like, what do we think his ceiling is? Maybe 100. If he plays 65 to 70 minutes and he bangs out 60 to 65 in base in a game, if he scores with a line break on top of that, he might just eclipse 100.
Yeah, fair.
He could easily average 70 and have like 60 plus in base, which makes him a very solid buy. But when we look at Lane, Crichton, Murray, these blokes could score hat-tricks and set up two to go with it and go 150 plus. And I will chase the upside. I wish he was front row.
Shall we move on?
From who? Flegler or Carrigan?
All right, our next guy is Tohu Harris. Did you get that? Got the name, yeah? We're all good?
We're done with Tom Flegler.
Tohu Harris, 640k, 61 average last year. He is dual position. That helps. Mate, I've got to tell you, and I might be proven wrong, I think this is who Harris is now. I'm not sure if he's got that 70 sort of average in him anymore. I think he's going to be a 60-point sort of guy. What are your thoughts?
No, just those 2 years, such outliers. And I don't know, I feel a bit harsh saying outliers because he did back it up. 20 to 21, 69 points per game with just enormous base stats. From memory, not a lot of attacking stats in that time. I still don't know how he did it. They were such huge years. He's getting on. He's had his fair share of injuries. 15 games last 2 seasons. I don't know. I'm not keen.
31 this year. Dylan Walker joins the club. I think he'll play a bit of a middle role. That could impact his minutes a little bit as well. So I think Tohu's a great player, but I think 60... I wouldn't be surprised if his average never drops below 58 but never goes above 62.
Yeah.
He's that sort of a guy. So very consistent. The duel helps. There's no doubt about it. But, similar to Pat Carrigan, he doesn't have that huge upside either in him.
Yeah, the duel's interesting in terms of I still don't want to start with him, but he could become very relevant, by round 10.
Yeah.
If there's no standouts in the front row and he's pumping up big base and averaging 65, 70. But for round 1, not yet.
Mate, the last one that I'd probably put in, the potential gun category, that over 600K, is Johnny Bateman. 622K. He's priced at a 59 average. I think his 2 seasons, he was a 72 average, something along those lines. I think 622K is a lot scarier than it seems. 59 for him is definitely achievable. How far above that he gets, I'm not convinced. Just from, the brief moments that I watched in the Super League, I don't know if he is still the same guy. But everything in my body says don't doubt John Bateman. So that's what holds me back. I don't think I'll start with him. I think you'd be pretty ballsy to start with him. You know more than me on this guy, though. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I can't do it just yet. Based 50 in 2020, so we know he has attacking upside. So it's like if you do take the gamble on him, what's his base going to be? He based 50 back in 2019 as well. So it just seems like a gamble that's not worth taking for me at this stage. I don't know, as I said, he's not getting any younger. There's a reasonable amount of strike weapons at the Tigers this year. Obviously, Appy's gone in there. Adam Dewey, he'll get a lot of ball. With Dewey getting a lot of ball, does that help Bateman? Well, yeah, probably. I don't know. There's new combinations to come in there. There's not a bit of talk. I don't even know if he's out in Australia. Was there visa issues or complications that he?
I don't think he's here yet.
He's not.
I think he'll be here in the next few days, but
less than ideal.
Yeah.
All that being said, the 59 average has been based on. You're like, well, they've looked after him. It's pretty good. So I'm happy to hold off and watch him early on, but go for it. He's fun. He's a fun dude to own.
He's a fun dude to own, 100%. But
he does those crabbing across field where he just fends off 15 blokes.
And that's where if he plays lock, he's more appealing to me. I think he'll have more touches, and I think he can be a little bit more selfish. He'll have the ball when he wants it, essentially.
Yeah.
Or if he's on an edge, I mean, he has done well there in the past, but I'd prefer him if he's at 13.
He could be a based up monster at lock, given the minutes.
Yeah.
And he's so fit and such an animal, such a competitor, John Bateman, that he could be one of the biggest minute locks in the NRL. He's not that big a bloke, so I think he's got the motor to do it. If he plays lock and plays 70 plus minutes, possible, he could have like a 65, 70 base.
Yeah. And
then we'll reassess. But again, let's see how it plays out.
Mate, the next guy is a very interesting one coming into this year, Nat Butcher from the Sydney Roosters. I would suggest he will start on the right edge. I think Satili Tupanua won't return in the first month and a half, maybe 2 months or so. So there will be an opportunity for Nat to start on that right edge. Finished last year with a 55-point average. In 80-minute games, he had a 66-point average. Obviously had a huge outlier game that night that the Roosters pulled the Tigers apart.
Yeah.
4 tries he
scored.
4
tries, 140 points.
Incredible. When you take that out, still a 60-point average. Still very solid. I like Nat. I once again, I wonder if that right edge is where you want to be for the Roosters this year. If Suaalii isn't there and Manu is through the middle, on the left, whatever the fuck it might be. I think you saw at the back end of last year that Suaalii got a lot less ball on the right because Manu was always somewhere else. I just worry that might be the same case with Nat Butcher. We also know that Sam Walker, who's going to throw a pass, it's probably going to be a 15-metre pass.
It will cut out 6 blokes.
It will. I love Nat Butcher. He's a very good footballer, but I think that people are getting a little bit overexcited. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. When did you say Tupanua was due back?
I think it's May.
Okay, so he'll get a decent crack at it.
But I mean, he's going to come back and he's not going to have a pre-season. I think that he outplayed Tupanua last year anyway.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about Josh Wong taking minutes off Butcher than Tupanua, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then is Wong an out-and-out edge?
He can sort of play anything, but I think he will be an edge.
Because that's the thing with Butcher. I think he's probably an 80-minute edge player until Tupanua comes back, but he can also be rotated through the middle if need be. He based 43 last season. Now that was as of 63 minutes per game.
Yep.
So as an 80-minute player, that maybe ups a little bit, but he also spent time at lock last season where his base was better. He had a game last season playing 80 minutes at lock where he based 70. So I don't know if he did switch to an edge at some point in that, but holy jeez, that's a lot of base. But on the edge, he doesn't quite get the base for me, and he's attack reliant. So I can see the appeal, but not for me.
Yeah. Getting really into sort of your mid-range sort of guys. One that I like this year, Adam Elliott, 564K. I think he needs to get 60 minutes at 13. But I think when I look at that Knights pack, I think they'd be crazy not to play him for 60-odd minutes. The worry is you got Kurt Mann on the bench. I think he'll come in and play a 13 role. Where does Adam Elliott go? Does he shift in the front row? They are light on middle forwards there as well. So if I know Adam Elliott's going to play 60 minutes, I think he's very, very exciting heading into next year.
Yeah, and so 52 minutes last season. He has a bit of attacking upside. Not a heap, but enough. He's tough bloke to tackle, lads. I just want to watch early on and see the minutes, unless we get some confirmation of it. I don't know. I'm a lot keener on other players, to be honest, at this stage. If the minutes come, he's got the motor to play big minutes. That's the thing. So if he did push to a 60, even 65, probably a bit ambitious, well then, sweet, let's lock him in. But I want to see it unfold first.
I think I could definitely see 60 minutes. Above that, 65, 70, you're probably heading into tough, especially 70, obviously.
Yeah.
But I reckon that we can get 60 minutes out of him. And I also think that, as soon as there's a HIA or anything in this team, I think he'll be the guy that they'll turn to and go, we need you.
Yeah.
We need you to play big here. So
I reckon we can find this one out before round one as well.
I'm confident we can. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. Mate, another one I want to chuck in there, 480K, and I'm not sure if he's got a role at the Canberra Raiders. CHN. So much talent, so much upside, so much fucking ability, but does he have a spot?
So average 53 minutes last season per game. If Elliott Whitehead or Hudson Young went down in pre-season, he'd be close to the most purchased player for round one. Bit of an exaggeration, but he'd be very popular, and his stocks would go through the roof. He's such a good Supercoach scorer. Again, bust tackles, offloads like a maniac. Such a good footballer. So there's a lot of attacking upside there. He's going to be coming off the bench at this stage. There was a bit of hope that maybe he takes the lock role vacated by that man, Adam Elliott. That's now looking more likely to be Emre Gula or Corey Horsburgh. So I don't think the minutes are going to be there initially, but if they do open up, and look, he's that good that he may work his way into a bigger minute role, whether that be, I think 80-minute edge or a big minute edge player, he would need an injury. Big minute lock role would just be a dream come true. So not at this stage, but a bit of a watch this space kind of one with CHN.
Tarek Sims arriving down at the Melbourne Storm. A lot of people very excited about him. 470K. That's a 45-point average. Personally, I don't think you're going to gain much money on him. I don't think he's got the ceiling to be thought about either. I just think, unfortunately, Tarek Sims, I think he's always sort of been Supercoach-wise just a bit of a nothing player.
Yeah, he's never had huge base about him. Averaged 59 minutes last season, so I suppose if he takes up an 80-minute role this year, there's improvement to be had, but just doesn't often find his way into attacking stats. He's more of an enforcer of a back rower, big presence in defence, runs a good hard line, but yeah, I don't like him. I think there's the other edge back row spot at the Storm is the one that we'll be looking at.
A guy that we've already touched on a little bit, which will be a huge watch in the World Club Challenge. We've got Luke Garner, 435k, 41 average last year. Games that he played 80 minutes at the Tigers, 47-point average. My eye test says that at the Panthers, this guy could be a 60-point 2RF. But the way that I do see this Panthers edge playing, I think that he might become what Isaac was last year, running that big decoy. Once again, we'll be able to see it in World Club Challenge, what it's going to look like. I think that he's got potential to be a tremendous 2RF for us. But I also do think there's a world where he could be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I really like him. And at that 435k price tag, I just don't see any downside in it. Like, people are saying Scott Sorensen has earned himself a starting role. I think that they love him as an impact player off the bench, and he'll stay in that. And a lot of people have always said, he comes on the edge, so where do his minutes go? I was like, well, no, he doesn't really. He can when needed, but Scotty Sorensen will come on wherever's required, and he often plays through the middle, just that nimble footwork, gets the quick play the balls. I also put out a Panthers analysis on site during the week, and saying how Kikau and Martin were preferred as 80-minute edge back rowers. Well, the stats would say, I think they were around about maybe 72 each per game, but there's restings around Origin for Martin coming into that. There's HIAs, there's injuries, all sorts of stuff. So when the stats might say that, well, the idea is that Ivan Cleary likes having 80-minute back rowers. And that was William Kikau, who, while he was vitally important to the team, he's a big boy. Like, you don't necessarily want him playing 80 minutes. So Luke Garner, we know, has 80 in him. Priced on a 41-point average in 66 minutes last year. He now goes to, the best team in the NRL. 2020, 2019, he averaged 56 and 58. That was in 72 and 62 minutes at the Tigers. Slots himself onto the left edge at the Panthers, even if he does play 60 minutes. And Hoskins or Sorensen get on there for 20 minutes. Not too much can go wrong, can it?
Yeah, and I very highly doubt he's going to play 60. I think that was because it was kick out.
Yeah.
I can't say that. So you've eased me. You've eased me a lot, mate.
Yeah, I copped more flack on it than I sort of anticipated. It sort of sat there and went, all right, always great to get point of views. And I may be wrong. But like I said, Kikau averaged 76 minutes last year, and he's a behemoth. You have about 30 kilos on Luke Garner, so I don't see why Luke Garner can't be an 80-minute player.
Yep, fair shout. Mate, over at the Warriors, one that I haven't really heard too many people talk about, Nair Corey. Came out and said the other day he's not going to play in the centres, so if he does line up in the second row, hasn't been a huge 80-minute guy throughout his career, but he has played in a couple of times. I went through the games where he has played 80 minutes on an edge, 50-point average. I just, once again, eye test, I feel like this is a guy that has a lot more to offer. I just wish he wasn't at the Warriors.
It's a real eye test thing, isn't it? And that's about it. Like, he's such a good footballer. He now gets his big minute opportunity, but even last season, he averaged 58 minutes for 41 points at Para, who were killing it. Sorry, that was 2021. Apologies. 2022, 40 points per game in 44 minutes per game. He needs, at the very least, 65 minutes to even hold value, I think.
Yep.
If he gets 80 minutes and that's his role, all right, we're talking. Like, there's upside there.
I think he needs that 80.
I think he needs 80 as well. I don't know if he'll get it at this stage. I think if he's the right edge back row outside Sean Johnson, I think that's a great spot to be. We know how good back rows are off SJ.
Which I think he would be. I think Mitch Barnett will be on the left, don't you reckon?
Yep. So, great spot to be. Even an older SJ still knows how to square up a defender and put a bloke into a hole. So, look, I'm happy to watch him the first 2 weeks and see him go 80 minutes to 80 minutes with decent base and get a good combo with SJ, and then I'll jump on round 3 at a very affordable rate if needed. Speaking
of Warriors, back rowers scoring tries, the next guy, Eli Katoa, makes the move from the Warriors to the Melbourne Storm. A lot of hype around Eli Katoa, and I mean, if you go back to that 2020 season, you can understand why. I had a look through his games when he plays 60-plus minutes in 2020. It's like a 70-point average.
Jesus.
He was incredible back then. Ever since, and I was very, very high on him. Ever since then, I've just seen a lot of red flags with Katoa. I know he's going to Melbourne. I know they've got a history of turning these guys into superstars. Let's call it as it is. They haven't over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried if Katoa's going to be the guy we all think he is. I'm a little bit worried if Katoa's the guy that Bellamy can trust. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's what people are relying on is
the magic dust.
The magic dust of Bellyache getting the best out of him. I think the beauty of it is, I think we'll know by round one because we'll watch the trials and we're just going to see what Eli Katoa produces. What minutes he's got in him, how destructive he looks, what minutes he plays, which will tell us, what Bellyache thinks of him very early on. Then if he does get named round one to start on the edge and he looked good in trials, all right, we can work with this, but a lot of things have to fall into place for this to happen.
And I mean, we keep saying trials. I think just about every team won't play their best team.
Yeah.
So it's going to be trial.
One trial
to make a decision. I still don't know if I can trust this guy with one trial. I think he'll be a guy that I watch for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think there's a real world where we start this SuperCoach season and we spend the last 3 months talking about the Melbourne Storm back row, all these options, and we start with none of them.
Yeah.
Because I reckon that it could just be a bit of a clusterfuck.
There, as we mentioned, Howarth, Eisenhuth, Sims, so many options. Katoa, so let's see how it plays out.
And that's if he doesn't pluck an Alec McDonald or a Chan.
Who knows?
Someone. It could be fucking anyone. Yeah. All right, Eli Katoa. Jermaine Hopgood. Jermaine Hopgood. Heard of him?
Nah, I haven't. You mate? You seen him play?
298k, 28 average last year. I'm going to declare it now. He will be a 55 to 60 point guy this year. I think he's going to absolutely kill it.
How happy were you when Maddo didn't get his ban overturned? Or the fine he's paying overturned,
I'm happy, but as I've said, I don't think it fucking matters. I think Maddo will come off the bench and play as a middle, and I think this guy will be the 13 long term.
Okay. Well, even now...
It helps it, no doubt about it.
Was it 3 or 4 games, Maddo?
3 games.
Yeah, so at least there's 3 games of... Maddo's not there to take Hopgood off, so that's a lot of minutes for him, at the very least in the first 3 rounds. So, that's lock him into your sides.
We spoke last year. He played in the last round, and I said on that show, if you're a draft player, get this guy in. He'll score 50 points. He played 68 minutes. He scored 67 points, 63 in base.
Yeah.
He's a maniac.
Beast.
Absolute fucking maniac.
And you'll get to him, obviously, in a minute, but while we're on the topic... Sean Lane, one edge at Parramatta. Maddo, you're under the belief that he plays off the bench in that middle rotation. I think a lot of people were suspecting
I think he's Scotty Sorensen. What do you reckon?
Well, that means that the right edge back row is probably Jack Murchie.
I think there's a good chance. Well, Jack Murchie, or they reckon Matt Dory's going well, which I've never rated Matt Dory, but I would rather have Murchie. It's definitely a downgrade, but mate... You watch Parramatta games, and their most important period is the 20 minutes after Maddo gets on the field. I had some numbers last year. I have to dig them up. If you win that 20-minute period, 90% of times you beat Parramatta. He is so important to that footy side. And you got to remember too, if they move Maddo onto the edge, they've also lost Oregon Kafusi. So that's 2 of their main middles, plus Nakora. That's 3 of their bench guys they had last year that were really important in that rotation that are gone now. I think that they'll go for the consistency of Maddo, and they'll back themselves to get something out of Murchie. Yeah.
So Murch could just be the enormous winner out of this one.
100% he could.
432k. This is another one that a few little birdies that we know that I can find out about this one, or hopefully. But 432k, second row forward. If he's an 80-minute edge man, slotting into Isaiah Papali'i's role at Parramatta outside of Mitch Moses, with that bye draw, all 3 bye rounds, whether you hold him for that long, I don't know. That's a good spot to be.
It is, and Murchie, he has got a try in him, but his base stats, when he plays 80 minutes, it looks like he gets 40 base stats just about every week. So he becomes very interesting. I don't think you'll make a stack of cash out of him. There might be better options, but I think he's interesting.
Yeah. He's, imagine that. Imagine, I don't know when he signed with Parra, but imagine midway through last year saying, hot property round 1 next year, Jack Murchie.
Yeah. Wild. But you finally give him a halfback like Mitch Moses.
Yeah. He runs a great line.
And I also just love backing in a guy that's got a point to prove.
Yeah.
He's been very good for a long time and just bounced around. Was it Canberra?
Raiders.
And then Warriors? Is that
Yeah.
yeah, that's the only spot. Yeah. But like, even going to the Warriors, like I thought, surely he'll get a shot here. I'd love to see him really take it with two hands.
Yeah.
Mate, the other one at Melbourne that I'm hearing is doing very well. We spoke about him yesterday, Trent Leroux. Had 2 games as a starting edge for 80 minutes in 2021. 50 base in those games. It's not bad. But the rest of his scores don't really reflect that. So I don't know if that's just early days trying to prove a point, whatever it might be. Another one to watch, but I think that he could come in and he could be one of the reasons why we don't own a Melbourne Storm back rower, because no one really grabs it.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, fuck knows. But apparently he is huge this preseason. He's worked hard. Josh Schuster's the other one I got here, mate. I think he's a must-have here at 6. Depends how you want to make up your team, doesn't it?
Yeah, it'll depend on the cheapies that emerge. Cheapies and mid-rangers, for that matter, in the back row. But at this stage, I'm happy to have him in my second row. But, again, as long as he's there somewhere, lock him in. Most don't play out for good reason.
If Bateman is named at 13, we would assume that Sean Bloor, he would take up that role on the edge. Been so talented for so long. Bad injury run after bad injury run after bad injury run. I think that I will start with Sean Bloor if he does win that edge spot.
You have to. 234K, possibly an 80-minute edge back rower. Lock him in.
Yeah. The last name I just want to mention is a guy that I'm obviously very high on, Josh Wong, for the Sydney Roosters. I see a lot of people having him on the bench. I'm not sure if he's going to be there round 1. I think throughout this season, we'll be talking about him at some point. He'll be relevant. I think during Origin, you'll see him get an opportunity and he'll score a heap of points there. But I don't know, I think even if they do ease him in at the start of the season, I don't think he'll play huge minutes. We've seen with Robbo in the past that he will ease guys in.
Yeah.
And then, mate, when he is getting to the point where maybe he gets more minutes, Satili Tupanua will walk back into the squad. So I think Josh has got tremendous potential. I think he's a guy that could be one of the better players in this competition over the next 3 or 4 years. But I just don't think March 2023 is the time for Josh Wong.
Hard pack to crack, that one, isn't it, the Roosters?
Yes.
And as you said, Trent Robbo with his veterans and his tried and tested players, a bit like Bellyache, he goes back to the well. He knows what he's going to get from them, and it's a hard one to crack as a young fella. And
you think about that bench as it stands right now, if you start with, JWH and Lodge, you still got Lindsay Collins a year after his injury. You've got Egan Butcher. You're going to have to carry a 14. Options. So and then the other thing as well is, he might get minutes as a middle forward. You got to remember their hooker's going to come off and come back on as a middle forward, as one of the best middle forwards in this competition. Yep. So you're not going to pull Angus off for a spell. I don't think you're going to pull Nat Butcher off for a spell. So where do these minutes come for Wong? I don't see it.
Probably needs...
He needs an injury or 2.
Yeah.
And then he becomes
at least
super
one,
relevant.
probably on the edge as well.
There will be at some point this year, I'm sitting in this chair, sprucing this guy till the fucking cows come home. And I can't wait for it, but it's not March 2023.
Jermaine Hopgood will be averaging 85 at the time.
And the rest. 2 RFs. I think we're just about done and dusted there. There are a few dual guys that I didn't mention that I think we'll chuck into the front row forward category. We all good for 2 RFs? Anyone else you want to toss in?
All good, mate. The only other one to keep an eye on is Luciano Leilua got a pending case off field. So if he ends up playing round 1, we will reassess at the time.
Yeah, and I guess whilst you're on that, the only other one that I would say at the Cowboys, I still think Hylam Lukey could have a real breakout season.
I'm Hylam's biggest fan.
Yeah. I thought he was better than Nanai at the start of last season, and that sounds crazy now, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 or 6 years we're talking Hylam Lukey as a better footballer.
The best thing is because he's came back from injury, he'll really be eased into it, but could find himself in a big minute edge back row role. He's so good.
At some point. Yeah. He's not cheap, he's 450K,
yeah. But
as you said, if he comes off the bench, drops down, could be interesting some point.
Yeah.
During the Origin period, he could be very interesting.
He's like a more agile Sean Lane to me, just tall, rangy back row, runs a good line. Yeah, he's good. He's good.
I think people are sleeping on him because of Nanai's season. This guy is still a weapon.
Yeah.
Just because Nanai is really good doesn't mean someone else isn't.
Can
still.
also be good.
Can also play football, yes. So, Highland Luke, you want to keep an eye on, as is Leilua, if all that, when all that gets sorted. Okay, front row forwards.
Yep.
Put your seatbelt on, Timmy.
Oh, I'm strapped in.
Mate, let's start with the guns. And one guy I want to ask you about, I think you mentioned him on the Playbook podcast last night, or the other night, Joe Tapine. Almost 700K, 67 average. I was having a look at his stats. It took him 6 weeks to actually hit his season average. So he started slow.
Yeah.
Was tremendous after that. He only scored 2 tries. Can he do it again?
Yes, he can. We always knew that given once he finally won over Ricky Stewart and he got minutes on board, that he could be an animal. So started last year with a 57-point average in, what do we got here? 57-point average across 48 minutes, first 10 rounds. The next 9 games, he went on to average 82.8 with just 1 try. It then went into that last few games of the season where he had rib cartilage issues and that flared up a bit, got a few limited minutes here and there. Output was a bit reduced, but at his best, I think we're looking at 82.8, that 82.8 number as an average with 1 try. So I'm so heavy on, you're not really starting with gun front rows and paying up at the start of the season because I know I say this a fair bit, but they just don't hurt you.
Yeah.
The best that they can do is like 100 sort of score. Joey Taps, I think, is the exception to this. He could hurt you, whether that's by busting out scores of 130 or 140 or just averaging 85. He can do it.
Yeah.
So, look, I'll stick to my guns and barring a real lack of other front row options, which we may get that, I won't start with him, but oh, God, I can see why people are tempted.
We were lucky enough to be invited last year out to a Canterbury Bulldogs game with our good mate, Darusi, who's been on the show before, and I met you at the train... Do you remember what I'm about to say? I met you at the train station, and the Canberra Raiders were playing at the time.
Yep.
And you didn't have Tapine and I did at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing you about 60 metres away on the
rib injury
platform, and I just saw you go, fuck, and I thought, ooh, Tapine scored, good. Opened my phone and he just thrown a 3-man cutout.
That's
to
right.
Score a try.
Yes.
And you were throwing your hands in the air. There was hair going everywhere, and I thought, oh, good, Tapine's done something. I like that.
That's it. Yeah, look, went wide there, threw a 3-man cutout for a try. I was like, that's just taking the piss.
Didn't even have my phone. I just knew what had happened. And then we got to the pub after that. This is another call I wish I got on the podcast. You remember what I said to you when we walked in? The game was closed. I said, Hudson Young will score the match winner here.
Oh.
About 10 minutes later, he grubbed it through for himself. Didn't have a punt on it. It was fucking filthy.
Yeah.
What a try that was, though.
Big day out for you, that one.
That was a lot that day. That was quite a bit. So, yeah, Joe Tapine, I'm not going to start with him. But I'm not going to stand here and tell you he can't do it again.
God, no. Yeah, not a chance. It actually terrifies me not starting with him. I just think, he got those bigger minutes as the year went on. Coming off a big World Cup, I think there's every chance he's based on a 66-point average. That's the thing. He doesn't need to do a lot more to improve on that from the word go. So, yeah, I think good luck to you if you're starting with him. I'll be a nervous onlooker, and worst case scenario, at least if he's belting him, it'll be good for my Raiders. So,
mate, another guy that I probably didn't appreciate him enough last season, what he was doing, Big Tino.
I was in the exact same boat.
I looked at his numbers and went, fuck, 704K, 67 average. Mate, the last 3 weeks of last year, he went 90, 107 and 70, and I don't think he scored a try in that time.
Yeah, he finished on fire, didn't he? I think probably playing at the Titans and then origin duties and all that sort of thing, there was never a time where he was a relevant buy, but they just slide under the radar.
But I also think with him, he improved at the back end of the season. I think that's got to have something to do with Aaron Clark moving to 13 and him just being put in the front row and just letting him go. So I think he has to play.
He did play big minutes in those games, 68, 80, 69 minutes, so big minutes.
Would it shock you, though, if he plays those sort of minutes?
Not really, because they're not exactly littered with forwards.
Points per minute, he's 1.13.
Well, that's the sign, isn't it? It's that and again, I need to double check this, but based on just the small snippet of the last 3 games, nearly every player in NRL SuperCoach history, when minutes go up, the PPM drops. He obviously doesn't fall off the face of the earth too much.
And I mean, if I'm looking at the Gold Coast Titans front row next year, who's stealing massive minutes off him?
Yeah.
Like if Mo gets back to his best, sure, but we don't know if he will. Like Tino's obviously the guy there. He's the captain at about 14 years of age. Like he's going to be the guy for a long time. I think he's going to play huge minutes there. So he's not a guy, like I'm not going to spend $700K in my front row forward. But fuck, if you are going to spend some money there and you don't want Joe Tapano, you don't trust he's going to do it again. Tino's interesting.
Yep.
Clemmer, no thanks.
No.
There's too many mouths there at the Tigers, isn't there?
And he's just boring. He's not boring. He's SuperCoach scoring. He's boring. He just gets awesome base every week. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he's averaged 70 for the season, but didn't have a score of 71 or of 69 or anything else. It was just, he scored 70 every week. I'm like, that bores me.
Might be a little quote tile this week. He's boring.
Yeah, please do not do that.
But yeah, I agree with you, mate. I do not
need David Clemmer seeing that, especially out of context.
Payne Haas. Interesting one here, mate. I know you guys spoke about him last night. I might just throw this to you. What do you reckon?
The old guru, OG guru, Tommy Sangster brought it up.
Wish guru.
It was a simple point. It was just that because he's got all this off-field stuff going on that we will not go into, people, I think, may avoid him and think, he's held to be in another place. How does he perform on field? Which means we get arguably the best front rower in SuperCoach, maybe give or take taps at the moment, in pod range.
Yeah.
You mentioned possibly a bit of a lack of front rowers at the Broncos to start the season. If Tommy Flegler did end up going south to Manly, well, that'd be significant as well. But Payne Haas is someone that, if there wasn't the off-field stuff going on, he's such an easy plug and play for the year, isn't he? Because he's so consistent. I will say, last year, you and I both started without him. First 7 rounds, he averaged 75.8, and geez, we copped a bit of grief, didn't we? Why haven't you got Hash yet? Why aren't you doing this? And it was that same logic of I don't pay out for front rows early on in the season because I don't think they hurt me. And he was borderline hurting me with a 75.8 average, but not much. In the remaining 14 games of the season, he had 1 score over 65. Wow. So that's where I'm just like, I don't like paying up for them.
Yeah.
Yes, but I do think as a result of these sort of things, he might start as a bit of a pod, and he's so good. He's so good. I won't do it, but I can see why you would.
Yeah, it's understandable. Your boy, well, formerly my boy, you've taken him off me this pre-season, which I'm a bit filthy about.
Yeah, you
got to let him go from under the wing sometimes.
Yeah, he really caught my eye when he killed it for the Maroons 3 games in a row, and I just thought this bloke's got something about him.
Something about him, yeah. If only you were told 7 months. Anyway, Ruben Cotter.
I didn't think I knew you at the time, so happiest
life was fucking
happiest
bliss.
Months of my life.
623K, 59 average. Ruben Cotter. I've just got written here he could be a 70-point guy.
Yep, we had a good yarn with him early on in the season, priced on a pre-season, I should say, priced on a 59-point average, played the first 6 games last year off the bench. I think we said we see him playing 65 to 70-minute role for the Cowboys this season. There were some injury-affected games in his 59 average last year. He had 1 try and no assist, based 54, available, as I said, in the front row forward position that I don't really like anyone else. He's one that I see 1 try, no assist, and go, he's so good, they'll come. So I've got him locked in.
Now, mate, we've just gone through Cotter, Haas, Clemmer, Tino, Tapane. I think if you're fair income, you can only own one of those guys. I think I don't know, maybe you see it differently, but I think you'd be wild to own more than one of those. Now we get into the hairy shit.
Yeah.
The everyone else league, and I don't know what the right answer here is.
You're looking for that gold, but it's all fool's gold. You scratch it and it's just shit underneath.
You're just hoping that it doesn't fuck you over. That's all you're hoping for.
And it's so funny, like these mid-tier front rowers. It's amazing how important they are.
Oh, mate, heaps important.
You just need to find that bloke who they don't even necessarily have to improve much and earn that much coin. It's just hold your own early on till I can afford and have the cash generation to upgrade you to a gun.
Yeah, and there's, this next little category, these sort of mid-range front row forwards, they range from 512k to 455. They are Luke Thompson, Corey Horsburgh, Tom Gilbert, Dan Saifidi, Lindsay Collins. Anyone else you want to throw into that sort of bunch there? You can add them as we go anyway, but...
Yeah, I had sort of listed down, Saifidi, Welch, Hamlin, Ueli, Idakamanu, Raiders back row rotation, Horsburgh, Gula, whoever lands that. They're all just a minute watch. They're a bench round one makeup watch, all these sorts of things, trials.
I think waiting to see which cheapies emerge, but I think that you want at least one, maybe two of these 5 or 6 mid-ranges, and then hopefully we get more cheapies that come. But let's start with...
If cheapies don't emerge, you're probably going to need 2 in this price bracket.
Yeah. Let's start with Luke Thompson, mate. 512k, 48 average last year. Would it be fair to say out of this group he's probably the best footballer?
He is, yep.
But Supercoach-wise, I don't know. And mate, I don't know if I'm overlooking it, but I found it interesting that he didn't play much footy last year. Not sure what was going on there. There's rumours of homesickness and whatever. Canterbury named 6 guys in their leadership group the other day, one being Max King. Luke Thompson wasn't one of them.
Yeah, what's going on there?
And you know what? Maybe Luke Thompson is a guy that they went to and he just said, you know what? I've had a lot going on. I just want to concentrate on me and myself. There's other guys that can do that role. Quite possibly that happened.
He might have said, I want to go... We're throwing it out. They might have said, I want to go home the next year or two and get back to family or whatever, so I don't want it. Who knows?
So I find that interesting.
Yeah.
That says to me that Max King at least plays as many minutes as he did last year, potentially gets a little boost. And then... you mentioned the other day how much Seraldo loves Andrew Davey and how well he's going, but I don't think he'll be starting on an edge, so he probably comes off the bench. They're paying a Mozza for Tavita Pangai Jr., so they've got to find a way to use him. Minutes is a little bit of a worry with me with Luke Thompson.
Bit of chat that Raymond Fatala Mariner makes a bit of a move to the middle this year. It might be like he might start on an edge early and move into the middle, a bit like sort of what Maddo done for the Eels at times.
If so, same problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So... and another one with, when he's got the minutes there, his base can be good enough to sort of, they said at the price point, you could plug a hole for you early on, but there's very little upside there. And then when there's a bit of a query over minutes, I can't go there.
I might throw to you for this one, mate. 505k, which people would probably think is a little bit overs for this guy, but Corey Horsburgh, if he gets the minutes, he's a tremendous Supercoach player. He gets through so much fucking work. I think we always look at Corey Horsburgh and go, he's a hothead, he gets suspended, do this. He's a workhorse. Yeah.
And if you're worried about his fitness and how many minutes can the big boy get, he used to be a gun AFL player back in the day. And he, absolute gun AFL player. So, mate, he's got the right organs there to go the distance. So he can last, Big Red. Look back to 2020, averaged 56 minutes per game and 51 minutes per game. 2022, 43 minutes per game, which if he starts at lock, I think he increases on this season. Obviously, that Adam Elliott vacancy at lock. So if he's the one to win out, the best thing about him, pardon me, and the thing that I look for in a front rower is I want an offload.
Red hair.
Yeah. I want the reddest, fieriest of hair and the palest of skin. I want an offloading front rower.
Yeah.
Because there's plotters out there who'll get their base. I want the bloke that can get those cheap points. Yeah. Even on a quiet day, he gets 3 or 4 offloads. On a great day, there might be 6 or 7 offloads. Clemmer, at stages, was doing that, where he just offload, and then he was told to put it away. I don't know why. But yeah, Big Red has a terrific offload on him.
And I think he has to be at 13, as you said. The only thing that makes me nervous is that even if he's named at 13 round 1, it's just Ricky Stewart roulette. It could change at any given moment. And there's young guys there that it could do it. There's older guys there that could do it. You could just go with a power forward game as well. So I just,
he's a bloke that just...
You'll be guiding me on this one.
Yeah. Well, if everything went to plan, he could easily average 55, let's say 55 minutes a season per game.
Yep.
Get through the year unscathed injury-wise, be offloading 2 to 4 times a game, and average 60, and you look to upgrade more year and there's other issues and you never need to, and he just sits in your team averaging 55. Max Kingish last year. So, yeah, I'll be keeping a big eye on him. If he comes out and plays decent trial minutes and he's offloading a lot, which I suspect he will be, look, I don't think I'll start with him, but he's a watch.
And the next one who people are very, very excited about, I've seen a lot of people locking them into his team, and I can understand why, Tom Gilbert. Arriving at the Dolphins, the forward pack, it's an aging pack. The middles are Mark Nichols, Jesse Bromwich, and you would assume Tom Gilbert. He's an Origin player arriving there. I find it strange how much confidence people have in how many minutes this guy is going to play when we haven't seen this team play. And his coach is Wayne Bennett, who traditionally, SuperCoach forwards don't do overly well under Wayne. He tends to share minutes.
He also doesn't like them offloading too often. He's very conservative. Very conservative,
and I think that if Cody Nicarima's on the bench, fills me with a little bit more confidence. But, I don't know. I wonder if there's just better options around.
He doesn't excite me, mate. With Kafusi and Bromwich there on the edges, we expect him to play in the middle rotation. He averaged 58 minutes last season. Granted, there were some obviously bigger minute games on the edge for the Cowboys. I don't know. Again, I'm not that keen on Dolphins players. I don't know how much upside is there. He's coming off injury. I'm just not inspired.
The thing that has helped his cause for me is that I thought that the Dolphins would keep Ewan Aitken on the bench, so they had a bit of punch. He's now playing centre.
Yeah.
Mate, it leaves them very thin with forwards. Like, I think you'll have Ray Stone as one of the guys on the bench, probably. And then you'll have to go with two middles who, honestly, off the top of my head, I can't even think who they would be for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So,
I can just see him averaging around that 47 they were last year to 50 points per game and just sit there and not really achieve anything. And if he does, anyone who jumped on will be like, okay, cool. He's done a job in the early stages, as we said before, you can upgrade him to a genuine gunner, and that'd be okay. But I'm also I see probably a little more upside in a few other players around this mid-range price point that I prefer. And if they flop and Gilbert fires, sideways trade, not the end of the world.
Yeah, can deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think with the new club and not knowing, I just think it's a bit of a pun under Wayne. But Daniel Saifiti, 484k, no Clemmer. This is, he's obviously got those big scores in him. I just think, we spoke about it the other day, him just becoming the alpha in this side. He's got a lift, doesn't he? I hope.
Yeah. Doesn't he? Tell me he does. He's in my team. He has to. Probably. 46 average last year. 59 prior to that. 63 prior to that. The interesting thing was his minutes didn't really drop last year. Like, he averaged 50... For his score to drop off so much, and maybe you could argue that the Knights were ordinary and there was less ball in play, I don't know. But he averaged 52 minutes per game. So is he going to play more than that this year? Probably not. So
with Clemmer gone, he might grab an extra 5 or so.
Yeah, but like for a big,
because there's no one else there.
Maybe, yeah, and like Clem at times played some bigger minutes, and maybe he has to play some more minutes. But if he plays 5 to 10 more minutes, does his PPM drop? I don't know. He could be the guy, and we've seen glimpses in the past of being a borderline gun in the front row position, but they've never lasted. Something always comes up with Dan Saifiti. You can find an injury. I can see the case, but probably not.
I just think there's one of Dan Saifiti or Adam Elliott that I think is going to do really well this year with getting a few extra David Clemmer minutes. I'm not sure which one it'll be because you look at their bench, mate, there's nothing doing.
I think Ads Elliott probably gets more Clemmer minutes, but...
Yeah.
And again, Dan Saifiti...
I wouldn't push back on that.
And then, but Dan... And that's probably more based on he already averaged 52 last year, but, he's an Origin prop, a former Origin prop, so maybe he's the guy.
Lindsay Collins, 455k. He's the cheapest of these 5 or 6 guys that we're looking at. 43 average. Second year back from injury. When he had that injury, he was flying for Queensland and was looking like one of the better front rowers in the competition. No Takiaho, he's left. But once again, Cheese through the middle. I think he'll play decent minutes towards the back end. In saying that, Rhea Hargraves isn't getting younger. Maybe they do expect more out of Lindsay Collins this year. I can see why people find him appealing, but I don't think he's going to be a starting front row. And when he is, I don't know if he's going to average more than 55, which is still a 12-point jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not confident he gets 55.
Yeah, I don't particularly like any of the Roosters middles. And the other name we throw in there is Matt Lodge, who...
Yeah.
Robbo obviously has
Train and trial, best of luck to him.
Yeah.
Hope it all works out for him.
Yeah, exactly right. Hopefully the big fella Jags a contract. So, like, we know Matt Lodge is a big minute forward. We know he's a very good footballer. So, I think he's going to slot in there and play some pretty decent minutes. Like, Matt Lodge is like, because he's technically on the train and trial and what. Is he still on that?
I think he is, yeah.
What's going on there?
Just Roosters being Roosters, and Matt Lodge knows you can trust them. And
yeah.
Likes 2-minute noodles, so.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, Matty Lodge is a bloke that playing at the Roosters, we know he's got 55 to 60 minutes in him. He probably doesn't in this side at the moment, but, like, he's a smoky down the track.
How on earth is anyone living in the eastern suburbs of Sydney on a train and trial? It's wild, isn't it? I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, he's resilient.
He's done well for himself. All right. Now, we're sort of out of that category. Is there anyone else in that sort of price bracket that you'd like to throw in there? As you probably noted, guys, we've gone through all these guys and we've pretty much got no answers for you as it stands right now.
Christian Welch, priced on 44-point average. Averaged 59 points per game the season prior. Not a lot of middle depth at the Storm. Obviously coming off a lengthy injury, but as you've pointed out, with a few guys that got injured very early on last season, they've had ample time to get themselves right. I don't mind Christian Welch. Big trial watch. The big watch for me with him is he's been his best when he's had the license to offload.
Yep.
And when he does, he can pump them out. And, like, he could be the perfect guy.
I am expecting the Melbourne Storm this year to play a lot more second phase footy. So he could be, I think, him and Nelson, which whenever Nelson offloads, it always really fucking worries me. But Welsh is very consistent in that department. So, he's another one that I think he's one guy that in trials I'll be watching him very, very closely.
Yeah, like he's one that I don't know what sort of ownership's sitting around at the moment, but 464K. So he enticed me. So that 2021 year where he averaged 59, that
15%.
15%. So that was at 52 minutes per game, 59 points per game, basing 47. I don't mind Welchie.
I want to watch him first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I could end up with any of two of those six guys, or I could end up with none of those six guys, and I wouldn't be shocked either way. So we'll see how it plays out. A little bit cheaper guys, 342K. Emre Gula gets through a lot of work as well. Very similar to Corey Horsburgh, just a lot cheaper. If he gets an opportunity there, he's someone to definitely keep an eye on. Any comments on Gula?
Yeah, doesn't probably have the offloading upside of, and probably a bit less of a work, not necessarily less of a work rate than Horsburgh, but yeah, it doesn't really offload. But 160K cheaper is the thing. So he's priced on a 33-point average from 36 minutes last season. If he starts at lock, plays 50, 55 plus, possibly ambitious, but you never know. There's upside there. 2 seasons prior, averaged 47 points in 43 minutes, 48 points in 42 minutes. So if we can get him to 50 minutes, genuine option.
Yeah,
Again,
very interesting.
Ricky Stewart roulette, the issue, but he's pretty cheap.
Yeah. Jack Hetherington's been a real popular guy, 266K. I say a lot of people thinking that he will play edge. I can almost guarantee you he will not. He will play as a middle forward this year. But regardless of that, mate, it's the 266K that makes him appealing, doesn't it?
He's very cheap.
But he also isn't a great scorer traditionally.
Never has been.
Yeah.
Like, he's a madman out there, as we know, which brings its own issues. So we've got Saifidi brothers, Adam Elliott in the middle rotation, can play on an edge if required, but obviously not expected to. A little bit light on in the middles, maybe. He's just not much of a scorer there.
Yeah, I mean, mate, the only reason why I would consider him is because he is so cheap, but don't buy into this playing edge dribble. He's not. He's going to be playing in the middle. They need middle forwards. That's where he will be.
We're thinking Brodie Jones on the edge with Frizz, or where do we reckon it'll be?
No, I think they'll go Fitzy.
They do love their fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I wish my mother loved me as much as Newcastle loved Fitzy. That would be unreal. So, yeah, I think it will be Fitzgibbon there. So, Jack Etherington, Stefano. This is probably the most interesting one out of all these guys, that if we get to a trial, hopefully trials, and we can see Stefano is looking good. I know that there's a lot of mouths to feed there. Clem is arriving. I still think that Stefano could do much better than average 30 fucking points next year.
Yeah, 30 points in 33 minutes. 2021, 52 points in 45 minutes. Last 8 games of that season, 66 points per game. He has some try scoring upside as a front rower. Bagged 6 tries back in 2021. Yeah, I keep saying it, but big trial watch.
Yeah.
If he comes out and looks good and looks fit and damaging, I don't see too much risk in going with him. Yeah, if he looks good, I'll probably put him in my team.
I think he's a guy too that I'd be happy to, start with one of these slightly more consistent but more expensive guys. And if Stefano is killing it, I'm happy to spend a trade there.
Yeah.
And go down to him.
And an easy one to do.
Yeah, very easy. Harm Sello is another interesting one. Mark Nichols gone at South Sydney, 30 average last year, 312k. Harm Sello, I think he is such a good footballer. And it happens every single year. He puts together 4 weeks of really good footy, niggling injury, out for 3 weeks. Comes back in, 4 weeks of really good footy, niggling injury. If he can just get consistent rugby league under his belt, I think Harm Sello could be a guy that off that bench could get decent minutes. Yeah,
so he averaged 35... No, sorry, that was 2021. He averaged 35 minutes. Sorry, I'll get him up for next year. But what's best case scenario with his minutes, do you think?
Well, I think that Totola and Burgess start up front. I think he's the third choice front rower, which, as we all know, throughout the season, he'll start here and there. I think he could be a 40-minute guy, potentially.
28 minutes last year, 35 minutes the year before. In that increase in minutes, or I should say decrease, there was a 12-point drop in average. So, yeah, if you can get into the 40... If you can get to 40 minutes.
If they have an injury in the front row, if Burgess gets suspended, injures Totola, I think he'll become very interesting. I think that I've got Davey Moali on this list, who I love, but I still think South Sydney are easing him in. I think Harm Sello's in for a very big year. I personally thought he had a massive year last year for South Sydney. I thought he was really underappreciated for them, but I think that he could become more relevant as this season moves forward.
Yeah, not one that I'd really consider, but, mate, all the points are valid, and I think... Bench makeup's a big one.
Yep.
Do they go a 4-forward bench with Saliva Havili on there? Do they...
He's the pain in the arse, isn't he? Because
he's a real pain in the arse.
Where if they had Mamazelis there, completely different conversation. Yep. But they also, I wouldn't surprise me if Tane ends up on that bench.
And
but he could play middle, which wouldn't really change anything.
And we won't know that until round 2. So if they go the 4-forward bench, that hurts a lot, but could be a shout.
Havili really fucks it, doesn't he?
Really does.
He's a real,
How dare he go and be good at football?
But I think especially Cook re-signed for 2 years. So, I mean, if they're going to start to bring Mamazelis in, I think it'll probably be next year.
And... you've got Havili there as another middle forward. You don't need Mamazelis.
Yeah, I agree. So, Harm Sello is very dependent on that. This guy, I think, as it stands right now, he could be fantastic for us. It is Sean Kepi. If Flegler or they don't get another front row forward joins there at 274k, priced at a 25 average, with it's Josh Aloiai, Jake Trbojevic, and no one. It's Paseka and Kepi. I think that he could really jump up this year, Kepi, and make some good coin.
Yeah, you look at the front row and you go, there's almost got to be someone coming in, doesn't there? So, yeah, again...
As it stands right
now, last season he averaged 32 minutes. Only issue, I suppose, is not much of a worker. 26 points in 32 minutes last year. The season before he averaged 40 minutes... 47 minutes for 40 points. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I mean, he's cheap, yes, but I don't know if he's got the work rate to him.
But Yeah, fair. But I mean, if he can get up to a 40-point average, which he's done in the past in those minutes, that's still like 130k.
Yeah.
For where you are, and you're not spending overs on him either. I've always liked him as a player as well. So I might be a little bit biased there, but I think he's got potential this year. Davey Moali, we spoke about him, bench rotation. Canberra Raiders, your young fella. I've been talking Trey Mooney this whole time. There are other options there, isn't there?
Yeah, Adam Mariotti, New South Wales Cup Player of the Year last season. So having a big pre-season, I think at this stage would expect probably Trey Mooney to get the bench spot there. But from a SuperCoach perspective, both he and Arta are at the same price point, about 234k. We'll see where that one ends up round one. The competition for that last bench spot is an issue because how many minutes do you get in this Raiders pack? So if they're dirt cheap, that's all good and well, but if you're playing 20 minutes, you're not really going to make money. They're both good attacking forwards, and they have attacking stats in them, which is a bonus. I just wonder if they're going to be the slowest of slow burns and probably need an injury to get more game time, whoever ends up being there.
Yeah. Mate, the highest owned front row forward right now, who do you reckon it is?
Pele?
Yeah, Pele. 26%.
Really?
Yeah. Now, this thing I want to talk about, I'm not convinced Pele will be in this Canterbury team. I hope he is. I'm not convinced he will be. I go through the list, mate. Pele, Stefano, Cotter, Hetherington, Tapane, Gilbert, Haas, Mawali, Welsh, Saifidi. They're the top 10. Number 11, which I want to talk to you about, is Viliami Fafita from the Manly Seagulls. I don't think he'll be in this side, but he's dual position 2RF front row forward. He's 10% owned. I reckon a lot of people are looking at just nothing, a front row forward position there. What are your thoughts on that?
Nothing in round one.
Are people looking at front row forward going, it's too fucking hard, I don't know, this will give me a loop option every week?
I'll tell you something straight away. If they're thinking VC, loop, auto emergency, bloody vice captain loophole, whatever, we've got buys this year.
Yep.
You're nearly always going to have a player. If it's not a player injured or suspended, you should have someone on the buy. So Nuffs take a bit of different. I go on every single year about having depth in squads for as long as possible because you will need it through Origin in the back end of the year and avoiding Nuffs until at least the Origin period. This year, more than ever with the buys, if you've got 4 blokes from one team, they're on the bye, and then all of a sudden there's a couple of injuries and a couple of suspensions, and then you've got 2 nuffs in your team, it's just like, well, guess who doesn't have 17 players this week? So, no room for nuffs for me.
Is the name Viliami Fafita the most scariest name of all time?
Dear Lord.
That's terrible. I understand why he's at 10%.
Yeah.
I get it.
People are just thinking, well, why not? If this bloke is a hybrid of
where Kick-Out meets
those
Fafita.
2 names.
Love that.
Yeah.
Mate, the last guys I want to mention, you've obviously got Payne Haas and Tino's little brother. They're at the Gold Coast Titans. Potential of them to grab a bench spot. They're both at bottom dollar. They could be, I hope one of them presents themselves. That would be unreal. That would solve a lot of problems. But, mate, that is front row forward. I think a lot of it's going to come down to running our eye over trials and keeping a close eye on performances and whatnot. There are other guys here like Ben Murdoch-Masillas at 7% ownership, 230k at the Dragons. I've got to tell you, I don't know if he gets over 23 points.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's an answer. Spencer Lenews here at 8% ownership.
Braden Hamlin-Ueli is priced on a 35-point average, average 46. That was back in 2019, bagged a few tries. Come back from injury, but a bit light on. I shouldn't say light on up front, but maybe some minutes down the track. But, mate, it's all just a trial watch for these front rows and their game time. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see where we end up with. Gun to head, will Ruben Cotter be in your round one side?
I think he's pretty well locked in, to be honest. Yeah, I like him a lot.
All right, beautiful, mate. Done and dusted?
Love your work.
No good. Guys, we will be back next Wednesday, 3 p.m. for another episode of Beers and Break-Evens. Trial starting 24 hours after that.
Oh,
how good. And if you are obviously you're all SuperCoach players, if you're a draft player, next Thursday night, I'll be having Nutty and Wooker from the Weekly Rubdown in here to do our draft show, our monthly draft show. So that'll be fun. Clear up some Pat Carrigan stats that it's a bit of that was a fun few minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
That's probably our worst we've had.
It'd be nice of someone else to carry you for a show.
Thanks for joining us again, guys. Blue Wealth Property, major sponsor. Tony's going to be joining us over the next 2 weeks for a major announcement. As we said, bloke in a bar. You got about 30 hours or something along those lines left of his 50% off sale for 50 hours. It kicked off last night at 6 p.m. So make sure you go on there and grab yourself some gear. Cheers, legends. We'll see you next week.